My thing is making sure we've got a building fit for purpose. But many of the emails were saying that, from people saying they would not be the same people they are today if it was not for Elliot, and they felt that in changing it as proposed would severely reduce the chances of future generations. One such was from a former pupil who tells us he was the first from a comprehensive school to attain Christ College, Cambridge, and the first to get a full blue in soccer, so the sports side and the academic. And as I say, obviously there were lots of other objections from various reasons, including the heritage, the worries about the name change because it was part of their community and so on. But it's all about priorities. Where are the resources needed? Here was the need, but the money has gone elsewhere. And after the consultations locally, huge numbers objecting to the original proposal and lots of work behind the scenes, I'm pleased to see the changes to the proposals mean more of the site can be retained for education use and vital amenities, including the outdoor amphitheatre. I think what we all want to see is the best possible education for all the pupils in Elliot. The proposal originally were going for a short-term solution, but a poor investment for the future. What we see is a combination that we failed the school and are responsible for its decay, hence the call for an annual review of fabric, maintenance and so on, and that the coalition government took the money away and we didn't think more clearly about what we should do about it. We need to ensure that we have a safe building for Elliot, fit for purpose, and return it to the excellence our community expects. So I urge everybody to support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Dawson.
Mr Mayor, thank you very much indeed. The combination of the motion and the amendment this evening allows for a rather wide-ranging debate. But a key thread is the Council's focus not just on the physical regeneration of Roehampton and, of course, Latchmere, but also the aspirations of the borough residents, and particularly for our young people. The borough's secondary schools have a very important role in raising such aspirations and ambition for the pupils and families. And the academy programme, initiated by Labour ministers, somewhat subsequently stalled by the party's hierarchy, is now under Michael Gove's leadership taking centre stage together with free schools as the route to raising attainment, achievement and aspiration for the country's young people. The education landscape is changing rapidly, and we on this side of the House support that change and those changes. And I believe that this is recognised at Elliot by the inspirational head teacher, his senior colleagues, together with many staff and parents, as Councillor Sutters has so eloquently explained. This evening, I just want to address some of the items that the minority party has rather randomly thrown into the original motion. And I genuinely hope it is not an attempt to sow confusion, raise false expectations and rewrite the storyline of the last Labour government. Because let us remember that the Building Schools for the Future programme was part of the problem. It was over-engineered, bureaucratic and ultimately unaffordable as the financial storm clouds gathered, as they were fuelled by a government who believed that spending more and more money was the answer to anything and everything. Here in Wandsworth, the welcome refurbishment of 2 sample schools, Southfields and Burntwood, is costing close to £80 million. Now, though obviously securing, I hope to a very high standard, the facilities of those schools, in capacity terms, it is adding 1 form of entry and some 6 form places. Now, in terms of securing additional capacity, the Council, through its purchase of the Bolingbroke Hospital site, has secured government funding to equip and refurbish the building to provide 4 forms of entry, secondary school with a 6th form. As the Director of Finance commented in the committee report, the acquisition of the Bolingbroke site was the most cost-effective option available to the Council. It's only a shame that the initial cross-party support for the school, especially from Battersea parents, as well as the former Labour MP for Battersea, and even Ed Bors, as he stood on the steps of the hospital during a certain period in 2010, is constantly undermined now by the Council's Labour group. And I do worry that attempts to promote a cross-party approach to Elliot may be going the same way, undermined by political opportunism rather than any real interest in the school, its pupils, and the local community. And I hope my fears will prove unfounded. The final item I'd like to refer to is the rather bizarre suggestion that the council raids the balances of all the other schools in the borough. And I would wish Labour members well in trying to explain that proposal to the parents, staff and governors of those schools, most of whom have clear plans for using such balances for the benefit of pupils of their own schools. And though I'm no expert on the funding and school finance regulations, I think any such attempt...
Please, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to have to ask you again. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think any such attempt will be considered...
I've already asked you not to interrupt. I don't want to have to ask you. I don't want to have to ask you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think any such attempt would be considered unlawful, even as short-term expediency, as the school balances are considered part of the direct school's budget. Even now, I can only imagine Mr. Buss's eyebrows if this proposal was seriously considered or tabled. So therefore, I support a council leadership which is seeking to find a way forward in difficult and challenging economic times. The proposals before this evening are designed to secure the future of Elliot by designating it the Ark Putney Academy, building on the very considerable achievement of the head and his team in recent years, and securing the necessary funds to refurbish and renew its facilities. And seen in the context of the wider proposals for regeneration, I have no hesitation in
Councillor Dawson, could you just hang on one moment, please? Sir, this is, I think, the third time, at least, if not the fourth time I've had to speak to you. One more, and I will ask you to leave. I don't want to have to do it, but I will ask if you persist in interrupting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could just rewind a few words. Seen in the context of the Council's wider regeneration proposals, I have absolutely no hesitation in commending the amendment to this Council. Thank you.
Councillor Miss Nichols. And Councillor Dawson. Councillor Dawson, microphone, please. Thank you.
Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, we've listened about the key proposed changes to the Elliot School and how it will deliver better facilities and opportunities for our younger and local residents. And the paper, when it went to Frost, demonstrated one crucial thing in that it confirmed that we listened to local residents and we adapted our plans within the financial constraints that we find ourselves. However, this is but one part of the puzzle in improving conditions in the area, and in that respect I welcome the commitment set out in papers 12463 to explore plans to regenerate Roehampton, not just in Roehampton but in parts of the area in need of improvement. I consider that the Council is establishing some key principles in taking forward the aspiration agenda, particularly in the more deprived areas of the borough, which I fully support and I wish to briefly comment on. First is the principle and commitment to consult with the local residents in developing our plans. We have not gone to Roehampton residents with fully fledged plans, but have gone with a clear intent to improve the physical environment and the public services currently available, including the local library. Secondly, it is to have a vision that things must change and improve where either the physical environment and or the services being provided are just not getting the results required. Roehampton is a prime example of where changes can bring significant benefits if we see it through and keep our eye on the prize, which is to provide better places to live and better opportunities for local residents and our young people. Thirdly, we need to make the business case and deliver it at a time of economic constraint. It's a reality that things are challenging. We need to develop plans that work without expecting handouts from the government. Bringing forward plans for Roehampton, I believe, is a testament to a council who has not given up on improvement and is finding ways to deliver. Finally, we must remember it is not just the buildings and the physical environment, but the residents themselves and what we can do to help them meet them and their children's aspirations. A completely refurbished local school is a shining example of this. The proposed Roehampton regeneration and any regeneration encompassing that area will also consider how to combat social and economic exclusion through targeted interventions such as our Troubled Families initiative and working with GPs as an area to pioneer new approaches to tackling chronic health problems and in working closely with the Job Centre Plus to improve employability and increase employment levels. I want all of my residents to be educated, healthy, and to fulfil their goals in life with their families in Roehampton. To do that, we must demonstrate that we are committed to change, the change they want, and to deliver an aspiration.
Councillor Carpenter, thanks for indulging me for so long, but your turn now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. In this debate, I intend to address Elliot School. I'll return to Roehampton regeneration, probably the next debate in the autumn as things move forward. So, Mr. Mayor, I spent the last 2 days at the Latimer School in North London, facilitating 2 enterprise days for their Year 10 students, together with 10 other businessmen. Before I went, I took a look at their Ofsted report. They achieved an outstanding mark in every single Ofsted category. By contrast, Elliot School received a satisfactory mark in almost every Ofsted category in their last Ofsted report. As we know, the new head of Ofsted regards satisfactory as unsatisfactory. Why this enormous disparity between these 2 schools? After all, Elliot is not a bad school. My goddaughter studied there and has now graduated after 7 years' study as an architect, a profession she was inspired to enter as a result of the iconic architecture and setting of the Elliot School. Her sister has a first-class degree in education. No, I think the real reason is that Wandsworth just doesn't take education really seriously. For all Wandsworth's success in raising standards across its schools over the past 10 years, and its aspiration for every Wandsworth school to be an outstanding school.
Would the Council allow an intervention?
Of course.
It's probably not intended that the person winding up will make an intervention, but I do think it's important, bearing in mind what the Councillor has just said, to actually tell him and to tell the rest of the councillors present that Elliot has just been named as one of the most improved schools in the country, in the top 10%, and it is very unfair to say that they're not keen in educational standards. The new head is absolutely 100%, 150% interested in educational standards.
Councillor Carpenter.
That's not actually what I said. I was talking more widely about Wandsworth. As I said, for all Wandsworth's success in raising standards across its schools over the past 10 years, and its aspiration for every Wandsworth school to be an outstanding school, the gap between Wandsworth and the best is much bigger than it should be. there should, of course, be no gap. By way of illustration, when Michael Gove cancelled Wandsworth's Building Schools for the Future programme 2 years ago, and with it the long overdue refurbishment of Elliot School, what was Wandsworth's reaction? Did they immediately prioritise investment in Elliot School? No. Their priority was the government's gimmick of free schools. So their funding went instead to establish the unnecessary Bolingbroke Academy in the relatively affluent Northcote ward. A priority based on ideology, not need. The wrong priority. Now, 2 years later, they have come to us in a panic, like Henny Penny, saying, "The sky is falling, the sky is falling." I am tempted to respond like Turkey Lurkey, "Sell sky." But I'm a constructive chap, and it is true that without urgent attention to its fabric, the Elliot School may have to be closed on health and safety grounds, to say nothing of the impact that the continuing delays have had on the morale of staff, students and parents, with the consequence of continually falling pupil numbers. That is why in this motion we have proposed a constructive way forward, which we believe will ensure a rapid refurbishment of Elliot School. Our suggestion is that rather than proceeding sequentially to raise the funding for the refurbishment and then proceed to procure and implement the refurbishment, we carry out the two activities in parallel. This will ensure that we have the time to secure the best possible deal from any sale of land, rather than being driven into a corner by developers who know we are working to a fixed timetable. That would take the bargaining power out of the developer's hands and put it back in our hands. The cash flow requirements resulting from any mismatch in sales receipts and refurbishment payments could be met from the surplus cash balances held by Wandsworth on behalf of its schools. Last time I looked, there was some £15 million. There will be no precedent involved in this form of bridging loan. Wandsworth already operates a scheme to allow other schools to use these balances for capital expenditures which they repay over time, although Councillor Dawson seems to be unaware of this. Given the timescales of the Elliot School...
Give way? Just to say, I'm well aware of the loan scheme that operates, though it is at a substantially lower level than what would be required for Elliot. I doubt if there's sufficient funds in the school balances to fund Councillor Carpenter's rather harebrained and bizarre scheme.
I suspect that given this, if you'd listen to my next sentence, given the timescales of the Elliot scheme, I would expect any such loans to be relatively modest, covering only the design and mobilisation costs, and to be repaid within around a year. Mr Mayor, while we are critical of the Council's delays in addressing the needs of Elliot School and the warped priorities they reveal, we are not seeking to make political capital out of the hole Wandsworth Tories have dug themselves into. Our priority is to secure the fabric of the Elliot School buildings, and so secure the education of Elliot School students, and return it to the excellence that they, their parents and the whole community of Wandsworth deserve. We have tabled a constructive way forward. I would urge you all to support the motion. Thank you.